Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another week of Get Mom Ready. We are so excited this week to have Shreya on with us from Moms Build AI. This might be one of my favorite topics ever. I'm so excited to see where the conversation takes us because we haven't talked about AI a ton with our podcast yet. And Moms Build AI is obviously a perfect place to be having this conversation and just to hear about what you've built, why you've built it, some of the objections you get from moms who are maybe hesitant to use it. So, Shreya, if you would tell us about yourself, tell us about Moms Build AI, why you started this, and what you hope that we all learn from it.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me, first of all. And you guys picked a great week. I feel like with Reese Witherspoon talking about AI,
Yes, I just saw that. Oh, you posted that.
yeah,
Yeah, I know. I just saw that
it's
too.
it's like kind of blown up. But yes, I would love to introduce myself. So I've worked in tech my entire career. Eight of the last decade, 8 years, I was at the same company. And, I was probably like one of the early employees when it was like a tiny little new player on the block. And then when I left, it had become, an extremely large corporate company, thousands of employees, etc. And I actually didn't return to corporate tech after my maternity leave. It felt like, I was listening to one of your guys' podcast. This mom had said, and I wrote it down because it was actually really powerful. You have to renegotiate your past life with your future.
Yes, Erica. Yeah.
And and that's a struggle, because you're a new person after motherhood. And, I did a lot of soul searching and I just, I realized like, I think I had to sort of like rebuild and redesign and reevaluate and recreate my career. And so I'm super grateful for my journey, but I just realized like with who I am now and my mother identity, I was rebuilding. So I was looking around, trying to figure out like where to go next. I really had no plan. Sometimes you kind of just need space to like figure out what are the pieces. And because I am a technical person, I came from a tech background. I got sucked into AI, and then I started advising VCs in the AI space, but then also some, very valued and well-funded, high growth start AI startups. And I was advising them on like, what I know from my experience. I help with go to market strategy, etc. And the work was amazing. I was getting fulfilled. I was really engaged. I felt so grateful to be working with these very smart people. But I just started getting so concerned about the lack of women.
Mm.
And then when I think about moms, I find us to be the most challenged segment of the women segment, right? Who is more time constrained?
Mhm.
Who is more under resourced, underwater?
Mhm.
And so I just started like nagging my husband and I was like, I am just so concerned. And my mom friends who I think are such ambitious, talented women,
Mhm.
they were like, I'm really interested, but I just don't know where to start. And
Yeah.
I started to realize like my privilege, right? I'm a technical person. I had access to this network, and I was working with founders who were building the next frontier of AI. Like not everyone has access to that. And so I kind of just knew like I had to help moms specifically. And my non-mom friends were like, why moms? And I'm like, why not? Like no one is building for moms. Like, and also I think
Yeah.
the lesson you learn when you become a mom, and let me know if this resonates with you, is like no one's coming to build it for us. So
Right.
Yeah.
either we figure it out for ourselves and build for ourselves. And so, I realized like I really cared about that mission. And, there's a lot of data around how women are being left behind and learning AI, using AI. There's no data on moms, but
Mhm.
I I have a pretty strong feeling it would look even worse.
Yeah.
Right.
And I got to this place where I said moms have so much against them, working against them when it comes to rising in their career.
Yeah.
I didn't want AI to speed that up. I wanted
Mm.
AI to be a source of leverage and to
Mhm.
just make it easier for moms to learn, make it relatable, explain it, and like explain why they should use it and learn about it. I think what has shocked me is that it has turned out to be a more controversial topic than I thought.
Say more about that.
I think because so much is unknown, and social media was a roller coaster in the impacts it had.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pushback.
Mhm.
And I've started talking a lot about this on my Instagram a lot, which is I I think it's really hard to shape something or advocate for change if you haven't learned it and
Mhm.
used it.
Of
Yeah.
And
course. Yeah.
and I think that's my core tension. And I I encourage moms to think critically about it.
Mhm.
I am very worried about AI and children. I
Yeah.
don't know when a child should be exposed to AI. We don't have data. It's brand new. We
Yeah.
we don't
It's brand
know.
new. Yeah.
But what I do know is how can we moms advocate or have an opinion if we ourselves have no idea what we're working with?
Yeah.
Mm.
And so, there's this aspect of getting women educated and equipped and resourced, which is just about, I think they needed to succeed in the workplace.
Yeah.
But then there's this other side of like, I think you are going to need it to be to to be a parent as well.
Yeah, and I
Wow.
think that's kind of how Shreya and I don't even know how I found you, but I must have found you at some point and something I should have looked back to see what it, but you had posted something and I was like, "Ooh, I gotta respond." And so I had sent Shreya this message and I'll repeat it here just for anybody else. Like I am, and Holly knows this. I wish Holly was on this
I know.
today too, because I think she would be, but maybe we'll have you back on again. And we can talk more because I think there's just so much that it's going to be hard to fit everything into one little space. But this, I'm hesitant. My whole job is about people and human connection and relationships and healing through relationships. Like that's my job. I'm a therapist. And what I see and what alarms me, I mean, one, we've seen a lot of this is people going to AI for therapy. Companies come popping up as they are advertising themselves as therapy, but when you actually ask them, they're like, no, actually, I'm not performing therapy. You should see a therapist about this. And so I'm feeling this sense of like false advertising, this saying you're doing something that you're not doing, people going to a robot or, this AI for therapy, what they want in human connection. And how is this impacting our ability to have real relationships, to engage in conflict, to rupture and repair, to tolerate discomfort, right? Like if I'm talking to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, it's like everything I say is amazing. Everything you're doing great. That's such a great idea. Wow. This is
You're the smartest person ever.
you're this. How did you think of this? This is perfect for your work. This is perfect. So, and like, great. We all need praise sometimes, but that is not how we build, real human connection. And so, my fear in this space is like, how do we teach people? I mean, you talked about kids and things like this to differentiate. Like, I'm going to use this like I would use Google, right? Or I'm going to use this like I would use. I mean, obviously it's not that because it's so much different. It's so much bigger and has so much more capability. But how do I differentiate? And I think you had said this at some point. You said something like, we don't want to go to it for trust, but we want to go to it for
Yeah.
something else.
And I want to just validate you a little bit.
Yeah.
Like all your concerns are valid because there is data around how there's a loneliness epidemic that has
Yes.
been caused by technology. There is data around the impact of screens on children and their mental
Yes.
health. There's data around teenagers and social media.
Mhm.
Guess what happened in all those scenarios? The moms were never there in the beginning to help shape what came after.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you on the risks.
Yeah.
We saw it play out, but I'm saying there is a huge opportunity that maybe if we get involved
Yeah.
early, we can then shape
Yeah.
how things go,
Absolutely.
right? Because that didn't happen.
Mhm.
And AI is so pervasive. It's everywhere. Even if you don't think you're using it because
Google is
companies
now using it.
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It's like
Kids or
embed
something, and it's
exactly.
not.
And
Yeah.
so there's complexity in that. And I know the quote you're talking about. I always say like don't go to it for judgment, go to it for information.
Yes. Okay, that was it. Yeah.
Because I believe it should be used for the best of its utility, but I actually think the success is by keeping the human things really human. And the human things are our judgment, our values, our ability to think critically about
Thinking
just
critically.
how we want to make decisions. And I don't think AI should be your decision maker.
Mm-mm.
Like a very good example is use AI to like give you a really nice matrix of like all the best schools in your neighborhood, but you're gonna have to go visit and see what
What
do
feels
I
right.
allow exactly, because that is like a very human thing.
Yes.
And I really and you know those are sort of two of the bets I'm taking, ladies, which is like one of my bets is if I get moms involved, maybe we can change the course with this one. We
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do it with social media, we couldn't do it, you know, with screens. Like maybe we can get in there early and that can impact it. And I think another one is if we can automate all the things with AI, you know, all the list making and all the information generation and all the data, like maybe we get more time for like the human elements, the
Yeah.
creativity, the critical thinking, and maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But the challenge is it's unknown, and that is really intimidating, right? Because that's scary. We need regulation. It's very unregulated right now. We don't have policies. We don't have all the protections that should perhaps be in place, and then I do think that's intimidating, and I think that's scary. But I think what I struggle with is not learning it and not using it. I don't think that is going to lead to like
Not
the
the answer.
change. Yeah. Now, the reason I believe that is because I fully believe AI is here to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any going back. I think it's just a natural evolution of where technology was headed.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to say like the human element that you're talking about is complicated. You know, like therapists, I understand the conflict, right? You're like, can I find a way to utilize this? But you need a human for that. I totally agree with that. I
Mm-hmm.
think another place where this is really complicated is writing and arts and literature. You know,
Yeah.
that's complicated because a lot of what LLMs can do is write for you. But there's also this side of like, I've seen tremendous progress in like core healthcare, like how much AI can help with cancer detection, reading scans
Mm-hmm.
better. And so
Yeah.
I do think it's the same story, which is with each tech comes a lot of power, and you
Mm-hmm.
just need to make sure it goes towards the good.
Yeah.
That's so good. I have used AI a lot for work. And then in motherhood, yeah, we've talked about it some on the podcast of like, okay, could ChatGPT create a meal plan for you that uses less than 5 ingredients every night and helps you form a calendar? Or, can you figure out the best parks in town to play at so that your Saturdays aren't full of decisions and you just have a list of things that you want to do? But what are some other ways to use AI that you are thinking of that you think would really help moms right now?
Yeah, totally. And those are good examples, right? Like I would say think of the thing that you hate doing the most and is like such a burden. And like start there. I hate meal planning. I hate grocery shopping. And so I shared
Oh,
this one on my Instagram, which is my husband and I. So in ChatGPT, you can do shared chats.
right.
So it can be you and you can add someone else. And so my husband and I are in a shared chat, and you can actually connect your ChatGPT account to your Instacart. And we just agree in that combined chat, food for the week. And then we ask ChatGPT to make a list of everything we need. And then ChatGPT always has a list. We've like provided a list of everything that we always have stocked in our house. And then I'll remove that and add everything else into the cart.
Wow.
That for me is like huge weight. One, because like to be honest, I can't make a meal plan alone. My husband is very involved. Like it's just I need it to be joint. And two, I think we like forget how much time is like saved just in, not adding it to the cart and just being able to provide a list. So I really like that one. I think that's just like I'm hopeful we are headed in that direction in general. Another one that I really like is there's this AI app called Whisper, and you talk to it and it dictates everything and organizes everything. There are a couple things that are really cool about it. One, you can literally whisper. Like you can whisper while you're walking, and it is so strong it will like get everything it needs. And so you're not like talking loud, that you can just whisper and it's gonna get everything. The
Yeah.
cool thing about the app is it integrates into your keyboard. And so like I can open Claude and I'm using Whisper to like just dictate everything. And then, I needed to make a deck the other day for a training I'm doing. I just talked about it and I was like, I need to make a deck. This is the audience. Here's look up this group that I'm speaking to. Here are the topics I want to cover. I want it to be this many slides. And then I was like, slide one, do this, slide two, do. When I came home after that stroller walk, I would say the deck was 90% there.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's something that Holly uses.
Yeah.
She does a lot of, I don't know what exactly that she uses.
Yeah, for
but
dictation. Yeah.
Yeah, she does like, she could write like a Substack article by dictating. She'll,
Yeah.
she'll say things, or she'll record a conversation, like maybe like a
Yeah.
coaching conversation with a client, and then, then say like, okay, can you sum up the things that we talked about, the client's main goals, or all of these things, so that then there's like a outline later, or there's like,
Yeah.
this is our next steps. What did we even talk about as our next steps? What did we, and things like
Yeah.
that.
And the reason for all this is like, we don't have time. Moms don't have time, right? So we need to stack things together to get stuff done. And that's just what it is. And that's the reality of the situation. And so I think that's why audio dictation is one that I just feel like is very mom coded. You're sitting at the park watching your kids play, you're pushing the stroller, you're on the drive back from drop off. Like that negative space is like,
Taking time.
yeah, it's almost all we have. And so I think it's really good. But yeah, there are a couple other things that I refuse to ever do again. Two things that you will never catch me doing. You will never catch me taking meeting notes ever. I use an AI meeting note tool, and I love the tool I use, and it gives me next steps. It gives me like you will never catch me doing a recap, and you will never catch me doing next steps, which to me is huge because my entire career I have had to do that manually every day. Like that's a huge thing for anyone working in corporate.
Yeah.
The other thing you will never catch me doing again is I will always, like, every tough email I have to write, I never start it myself. And the reason that's a huge unlock is like those sticky emails, we keep delaying, we keep procrastinating.
Yeah, I
And
don't want
you
to deliver the
almost-
bad news.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to deliver the bad news. You don't want to say no. That is something that I will always work with AI to get a first draft. And I think that's kind of what you're looking for. You're looking for those sticky situations where you need a little help to get going, get things sorted. But I want to take the intimidation down because, one of the things I hear a lot from moms is like, I'm not technical. And I'm like, well, that's great. AI is not technical. I actually find AI tools to be some of the most intuitive tools to work with because you actually can use normal language to communicate. And also, if something's wrong, you just say like, why isn't this working? And so I always just say, pick Claude or pick ChatGPT and just start saying, okay, I hate meal planning. I hate picking activities for the weekend. And just start there, and you'll just naturally progress and, figure out. And I will say what's intimidating about it is endless.
Yes.
But yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay. So this is I don't want to say my pushback, but my thought that as you're talking about this, I'm like, oh, these are all, wonderful things that could be helped with, and, give more time back. And then you said the thing about endless, right? And my thought is, how does this not create a world of more urgency, of like more, okay, we can create more, like now we can do more, now we can, like, if I'm, or like optimizing, right? Like this idea that like because I can fall into that sometimes too, that I'm like, oh, I can create an outline for this in so quickly, or I can do that. And so then it's like, where's the space to just be, like maybe I do just want to daydream on my drive back home, and maybe I don't have to feel like every moment has to be, or like, and I don't have to grocery shop, but that doesn't mean I have to work, like, but how do we support, maybe because, and I don't know what is our role to get involved at I know not ground floor because it's already, kind of going, but to still encourage the like, yes, this can create more, like this allows us more time for the things we like, but let's not let it just like make us, endlessly creating and doing and optimizing.
And before you answer that, one thing that's super related that I've seen so much lately is, I guess it's kind of like a trend of instead of asking how quickly can I get this done, it's ask yourself, how much can I enjoy this while I'm doing it or something? And it's like, a mom washing dishes a little more slowly or what, but it's all over Instagram right now.
Okay, I haven't
So
seen
I
it yet.
think that's a super relatable question that, and in a space where the world's moving so fast
So
and a lot of
fast.
people are starting to ask like, oh boy, like, can I keep up? Do I want to keep up? Yeah. So I'm just curious. Yeah. Now you can answer everything Hannah just
Yeah.
said.
No, I think that's actually what is intimidating about the endless feature, which is it's kind of the same argument where people are like, well, it can be used for good and it can be used for evil. Like a lot of what
Mhm.
I talk about is I want it to help you reduce mental load. But
Yeah.
then to your point, what if the competition even gets even higher because this mom is now doing everything so personalized and like everything, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it can go the opposite way as well. I think that's, to be honest, like I think that's just like the general human versus like technology
Mhm.
battle. I would even extend it. I wear an Aura ring. That is, that it's so
Data.
interesting when
Yeah.
people ask me, should I get the Aura ring? I say if you're not going to be anxious looking at your data,
Yes, that's a great
right?
response.
Because I think like Anna, you were making this point too. Like maybe you shouldn't know how you like. Maybe you shouldn't have score your sleep every day. Like
Yeah,
maybe that's
Right.
something you just. As moms, trust me, our scores are never that
they're
great.
never that great. It's like, oh, I got a 92 today, so I need to do this and this and this in order to get 100. Like,
Because
yeah.
I know
So
I'm getting
yeah,
it right. Because,
yeah. And okay, so one of the things that I talk about with AI is like to be good at AI or AI literate, you actually just have to have one tool that works for your life and makes your life better.
Mm,
To me, that's the goal. Is that AI has a lot of utility, but you need to pick what parts of your life you want it to have a utility, and you need to pick what parts of your life should just never have AI. You will never get a personal email, note, or anything like that from me written by AI. It's going to be very me. And I think that's something that like I choose, right? Another thing I talk about is like for parenting guidance, of course I ask, Claude, like how should I teach my son to say more words, etc. But like at the end of the day, like I'm parenting in the moment, right? So I can have these points of knowledge. Another aspect that's happening is, when social media came, people were like, everyone's becoming a content creator.
mhm.
Like everyone is doing it. And so there's this term now called AI slop, which is like people creating for the sake of creating. Like you can create it.
Yes.
So just like, and it just becomes noisy. I feel like it's going to normalize a little bit.
Mhm.
And, like I think it's going to calm down. And I always tell people like the goal of AI is not to try the hot new tool. That is not it. If
Mm,
you interview some of the most like sharp minds in tech and you ask them like, what's your tech stack? It's like three things that they use constantly and that's it, or two things or one thing. And like,
What's
they're
your wait? Say that again. What's your tech stack? Is that a term?
it's just like, what are
What are the
yeah.
things you use all the time?
Yeah,
It's
like
kind of like,
exactly. Because for me, like Claude and Whisper, like I use that a lot. Like that's
okay,
my way of getting work done.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean that's your way of getting work done. So
right.
I always tell people like find what you need. And that's with everything, right? Like
Yeah.
we're selecting that for ourselves with every part of our tech experience. Like, uh, some people love the Apple Watch, some people hate the Apple Watch. And like I hated the Apple Watch because I was like, I don't need one more screen telling me I
Yeah.
haven't exactly. And so I think at some point you just look with AI, it's the same as anything else. You have to pick and choose. But I worry less about the problem of like, oh, I'm using too much AI. Like, like that is a risk. I'm more worried about like, I'm just gonna ignore, not participate, not deal with it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you said about our children are going to be introduced to AI. How old is your son? Or do you have multiple kids?
No, I just have a 14-month-old.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a 4-year-old and then Hannah has 3 between
Yeah.
like 18 months and 8 years, I think. But anyways, so that is something I've thought about it a little bit, but we're just not even close to that age. So honestly, I'm like, yeah, we'll save that for later on in life. There's enough to deal with right now, But that is so compelling. And so what would you say? I know you kind of said for moms who are maybe hesitant with AI or have never used it, just picking like ChatGPT or Claude and just typing in a few things and seeing what happens. What are some other steps we can take maybe for moms who are doing that? Like I'm in there, but I'm not the most proficient at it. Like, what would you say the next steps are for us to get educated so that we can shape AI, like, your mission?
No, definitely. I think one of the things that I think is super important is to just pick one or two resources that you're gonna go for information and just focus on that. A lot of oh, my favorite is in there,
She's
the
got her
beautiful
keys. She's ready to go.
the beautiful smile. But you know what I was saying was like just pick one or two resources and use that as a way to keep updated. Because the truth is we don't know what happens once AI enters schools or classrooms, at what age. And you know, a lot of what I'm trying to do with Moms Build AI is aggregate a lot of that information, right? And you know, a
Mm.
lot of studies that I read, and I have been, I want to transparently share this. I have been slowest to introduce content around kids plus AI because we just don't have a lot of data out
Yeah.
there, and so I don't want to misspeak. And I don't want to put out something, and, you know, I was reading this MIT study, which was very inconclusive because it, you know, it kind of said like, we don't know what it's going to become. So it's hard to say like what the rules should be. But, you know, I'm like following and speaking to, you know, there's a professor that's writing a book about, you know, AI and trying to learn lessons from the screen generation and social media. Like, I'm just trying to stay very up to date on like what learnings we could apply because it's just too unknown. And I think a very simple way is asking schools, like, are you thinking about this? Like, when are you going to introduce it? And I think maybe the intimidating thing is that our kids will be the first part of the first-ish generation that's going to go through it. But I think the best thing you can do is like ask and have pick a few resources that you're like, I feel like they're going to provide me a data driven approach. And there's some really good resources out there. And I try to be very, I mean, I'm, you know, my background's in data, so I want to see like actual data as to like how we're deriving a POV. um but that's a topic I really care about, but I want to be very careful about it because it's unknown. That being said, we could apply some principles to social media and, you know, phones, etc. Do you ladies have a perspective on screens and, you know, social media for your kids already?
I would say so. I have a almost 9-year-old, six
Okay.
and a half year old, and then this little 1.5-year-old. And so we are pretty conservative when it comes to screens. Like my kids do not have iPads, they do not have phones. We have a TV in the living room, and my husband and I, we have a TV in our bedroom. And I have this computer, my husband has his computer. Like that's it. Like if I could, yeah. So we're pretty like they know the certain things they can watch, and they push it a little bit, like with the 9-year-old being like, "Can we watch this show?" And it's like it's kind of hard to research every single show and every single, but if they put a show on, and again, it's in the living room and we live in
Yeah.
a pretty small house. So like we're walking by, it's in the middle, it's right next to the kitchen, like we're always around. And so like if I hear something on the show, I'm like, "Oh, that's a show that's too old for you."
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can't watch that. And they're like, "Oh, but and it's like, "No, sorry." So I do think, as we were talking about it, I'm like, it is so hard to say anything definitive when it comes to our kids. But I do know I don't love the like, again, like we get immersed in our phones. Like, I don't love that for a kid on an iPad. Like, I don't want them to lose out on going to the grocery store and connecting to human people and being like, "Hi, what's this?" Or "How much does this cost?" Or what are we going to make for dinner?" Or like those kinds of things, or just being out in public and talking to people. What I was beginning to see when I was working with children is like a lack of tolerance for discomfort. I
Yeah.
think that is something that iPads are doing. They're creating a lack of, I mean, if you're like, you need to be patient, and yet waiting for 10 minutes for the food to come at the restaurant, we're giving them an iPad, we're not being patient, or we're sitting on our own phone. If we're sitting on
Right.
our phones
Yeah.
and then they're putting, we're not teaching patience, we're not teaching, discomfort or things like that. And then it becomes this cycle, right? Then your kid can't handle it, then you can't handle it, and you give them the iPad, and it's just this cycle. So I with AI, as you're talking about it, like we have conversations with our 9-year-old, because like my husband will use it sometimes for work, right? Like he's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
use ChatGPT to figure out a measurement for something that he can't see in person or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
it is, and or drop a plan for something if he doesn't have, whatever. But so we talk to my oldest about it. We say, and what I was just thinking about is this, like, being able to critically think, Shreya, like you said earlier, like being able to critically think, like our kids being able to make judgments on their own, being able to see like, okay, what's right and wrong, or like, what should I be using? Like, is this, I'm thinking of like, if you're thinking about it with homework, like, is this me doing my homework by myself, or is this somebody else doing,
Mm,
my homework for me?
No, and I think that's actually, I was watching, I forget it was some new channel that was speaking to kids, teenagers, and
Yeah.
they were using AI for that to do their homework because it can,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And I think what I'm prepared for is I'm trying to be very conservative with tech, but I do believe that whenever you decide to give your child an iPad or a phone, you are then going to run into the risk to them using AI because it's so prevalent.
yeah.
One of the examples that, that actually really stuck with me, and I wonder if this resonates with you. So, one of the cute things that AI can do is like create like a comic book, right? So, for Father's Day, I had a really cute I gave, Claude, I inputted a picture of my husband and my son, and then Claude made like this comic book for Father's Day, and it was adorable. Like, everyone loved it. But then I started thinking, my nephews love making comic books. They sit for hours. They're 9 and 6,
Mm.
and they sit for hours and make these comic books. And he was asking me if I would help publish it. And I was like, yes, let's workshop it. And I was thinking, wait, I love that I could personalize this card. I love that maybe I could make coloring sheets for my son. But wait, I don't want my nephews to be using AI in a way where they don't even think it's worth it to do that creatively themselves.
Right.
And
Yes.
that's when it got complicated. And I
Mhm.
think that's how we've always felt with technology. And so I think a great starting point is, the limits you're putting on today's tech, put it with AI. The other risk is what I worry about is by the time your kids are at that stage where you're ready to give them a phone, ready to give an iPad, if you didn't follow along, I think you're gonna have a really hard time policing it with your kids.
Right. Because it's sneaky, it's a part of everything, like you said, but you can't always place what's AI and what's not unless you're well versed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot with parents that don't know. Oh, sorry. Parents that don't know what's going on. They don't know the apps, they don't know all these things, and so their kid gets a phone, and then they're on this like random app, and they don't know to have checked onto that app, or they don't know what actually is in Roblox. Like, they don't know what actually is happening, and if you don't know what's happening, how are you going to be able to protect your kids?
No, absolutely. And so I think it's just going to be a journey, but I think that's why I believe that like learning and having the skills to be able to assess it and like use it for what it could be really meaningful and impactful for. Like,
Yeah.
one of my hopes, ladies, is that I think mothers in America have very little infrastructure of support. It has been the probably the greatest wake up call of my life to just see what it's like to be a mom. And one of my hopes is like maybe we can build the infrastructure because AI is so powerful, right? And so that's using the AI for good. But I think at the same time, like, I'm also very aware of the critical thinking that's going to be required to make sure it doesn't go the other way. But you have to be at the table. You have to be in the conversation to kind of make that happen. And that's my ultimate goal is like, how can I just make sure the moms are at the conversation? But at the same time, if we can get infrastructure built for moms and protect our kids, like, that's where we're using it. And one thing that I should have said in the beginning, always fact check AI. Like, and that's why I tell people do not make
Mhm.
decisions off of it. Like, I actually sometimes have Claude check chat GPT's answers
Yeah.
and chat GP like, and like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, things are still very human. You still need fact checking. You still need critical thinking. And so I think there's this world where the human, there is in a very, if we go down a positive path, right? There's a way where the human gets more time. The human aspects of life and the world get
Yeah.
more time. And it's just, it's the question of like, how do we moms help shape it so that it goes in that good way and not the bad way.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's kind of like any challenge that we face. The more that we are challenged, the more we have to rely on our values, the more we have to understand what we want our lives to look like. And so in a way, this is, a wake-up call for all of us to look at what do we value what do we want as mothers? What do we want for our children? And to really make decisions based on that. And yeah, if it wasn't for this, then we might not ever have to question those things. But because we're in a day and age where this is the reality, our kids will access this at some point in their lives, no matter how long we, delay it or try to delay it. So it's really, how can we more intentionally parent and police ourselves and make decisions for ourselves that reflect what we want this to look like? Yeah, I love that.
I have a question. What do you suggest? Like, where would somebody start? Let's say we do want to learn more. Like, what do you suggest? I know obviously there is ways of like playing around with it, but where could you get more information, I guess, about like how does it work? How could it, where is there any data that we would be able to look at? Yeah. Where should we start?
Follow Moms Build AI on Instagram.
Well, yes, Moms Build AI,
I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, aside from that, like that's something that I would love to build with you guys to share with our audience, and just like great resources to look at. And that's a challenge I think we face in general, like what to consume to make our decisions. But I think there's a few books that I feel strongly about that give you a very good perspective. There are a few thought leaders who have done an amazing job. There was even this Oprah episode that I think she did an excellent job of getting like AI thought leaders to talk about, what can happen. And so, I would love to work with you guys to give the audience a curated list. And I have a curated list of like who I would trust and listen to. And I think those are the best ways. But I also think you cannot consume endless information, right? And so I have a short list of like this newsletter, this web, like, I have these thought leaders, like, and I'm fully confident in them keeping me up to date in what's going to happen. And so I think that's also really important, because otherwise it's probably very overwhelming, the amount of news. And some of the documentaries, I do want to warn, there's a very popular documentary, and Oprah had the creator. That documentary can make it look like doomsday, but the reason that's really important is because you almost have to see how it could go really badly to make sure you don't get there.
Yeah.
And so
What was the documentary called?
it's called The AI Doc, actually. That's the
AI.
little name. And I think they're just trying to warn us of like what it could be. And I think the great thing is universities are doing a lot of research on this. I feel like I follow a lot of universities for that reason, because I think they know. But I think what scares me is I think I just saw recently is like they changed. I think CDC changed the guidance on even screen time.
Yeah, they did. And I was so frustrated about that, because they've changed the screen time guidelines, and then they've also changed developmental milestones.
Yes,
Wait,
they did change
what are the screen time guidelines?
They've increased them.
Oh,
Yeah, they did.
To allow for more screen time. And
like
then
in general for kids, of like what's healthy, or like at schools, or it's in general.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
saw something else the other day. I need to look at it, but that schools on average were using about 5 hours of screen time during their days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know
mouth
it's becoming
open.
huge in schools right now. So what you were saying about researching schools is
Right.
even
just
more important
asking.
now. Yeah,
Asking
exactly.
is like part of the journey. But yes, I think like when I saw the CDC was still updating, that
Mhm.
also made me remind myself, like, sometimes parental gut is what you should
Mhm.
follow, right?
Yes. Oh,
Because that took screens have been around for a while. iPads have, I don't know what year they came out, but it's been a while. And so
yeah, the iPhone
just
was out like when we were in
think
college.
about
Yeah.
and I think one of the changes they made is think about screen time as dessert, meaning like sometimes it's good, sometimes it's okay to use, but like most of the time it shouldn't be getting in the way of your play and your art,
Sure.
etc.
Yeah.
And then I think they changed the age. My son is 14 months, has never been given a screen. We're going to try to keep it going for as long as possible, but never say never, because
Yeah.
Right.
I just don't know.
Right.
But I think at the same time, like I felt like when CDC kind of updated that, it was also a reminder of like the room for your gut as a parent, of like
Yeah.
what you're comfortable with. But
and just
I
because
think,
they've changed that
Yes.
doesn't mean that it's right.
and so I think that unfortunately, maybe the takeaway is like with AI, you need to, that's why critical thinking is more important. Like critically think about, well, what experience do you want your child to have? And I think about it a lot, because truth of the matter is my husband and I do spend a lot of time in AI.
Mhm.
And the reason being is because it's very welcoming to experimentation.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that he and I talked about like giving ourselves limits on like how much we explore it. And but I think the novelty will wear off a little bit. Like
Yeah.
I think we'll get to a place, but I think what's really challenging is a lot of times with technology we count on self-regulation, right? Like with social
Yes.
media, like you have to kind of pick your self-regulation.
Yeah.
But moms can band together and we can kind of push schools to be like, hey, let's not rush on this AI thing. How like ask the question of like how much screen time are we using? And like I think we sometimes forget the power in like collective questioning and
Yeah.
just slowness. And like it's interesting because I'm telling moms to lean in, but my personal perspective is like kids lean out. Like
Yeah.
it's like let us figure it out before you
Yes.
jump in.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's so true about power in numbers too, because there is this like, there's this movement to wait for cell phones till high school
Yeah.
and then social media like after that. Because they say like once kids are getting phones and social media, like their brain is stopping developing. And if that's happening so early, like that, we don't want that. But it's hard because even, at this age, it's like, oh, so and so has a phone, or so and so is using TikTok, or so and so is doing this. And it's hard, when your kids are like, everyone else is doing it. I want to do it. And so if you band together with your kids, best friends, and you say, right, like you're good to wait until like your kids aren't allowed to watch this movie or your kids aren't allowed to get cell phones until high school, then you can be like, okay, we have this group of people. And yeah, there are some people that have it. Other parents, other families make different decisions. And there are obviously, if sometimes kids need a cell phone for safety and things like that. So like
Yeah.
there are reasons. But if you have a group of people, then it feels better to be able to make these big decisions.
Yeah.
100%. And I think actually I think there's some data around like the best results around preventing tech usage is when you can get that group effect, because I do have empathy for children and the concept of peer pressure, right? So if you can
Yes, of
make it a
course.
school rule, like you're kind of protecting the experience of your child
Yeah.
as well. And so I totally agree. And I think my question is just I'll always keep coming back to it. If we don't do this, and like what's the alternative? We do nothing and we
Mhm.
just let
It
we
take
just
us-
let
yeah.
let it happen.
It all develop. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then we're always reacting. I mean, we're always like, it's always a fire,
and hiding
instead of-
from it almost, instead of, okay, this is reality. What do I want to do about it? Like we don't have
know
to
what
hide from it,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just to add to that, like we know policy takes time. We know data takes time.
Yeah.
So in the interim, I do think moms are gonna have to decide for themselves like how to handle it.
Yeah.
Because
You know what I think of too, and I'm chatting so much about this, but I don't know if either of you follow the birds and the bees.
No, but you've talked about it before. Yeah.
Yeah. So what she talks about, it's about not having like one talk. We kind of grew up with you get like the one sex talk, right? And it's a fire hose of information all at once. The kids are like, this is so uncomfortable, but it's never talked about before or after. And it's like, okay, we had it, we're done. And what she says is that when you're talking about reproduction, puberty, like all of these things, it should be a drip conversation, right? It's like when they're little, you're talking the anatomically correct body parts, as they're getting a little older, you're saying like, this is a part of your body that nobody can touch. This is what you say and things like that. When kids are like, hey, I heard this word, like you as the parent want to be the expert so that, your kids come to you. They say, oh, mom's not afraid to talk about this. I can go to mom and dad to talk about this and to question this and to, mom's also she talks about like you wanting to be the authority on the subject and not being afraid to talk about it. And if you're afraid to talk to your kids about it, then they're not going to come to you. They're going to send us.
Totally.
And so I
And they
think
might not even know that They might be like, oh, my mom's never talked about this.
No, she
She must
doesn't
not
get
know
it.
this happened,
Yeah, she must know this like weird word that I heard a kid say on the bus or whatever it is.
No,
So,
but like you and that's kind of like, you have a 9-year-old and you might get to a point where she comes home and she's like, hey, like my friend was playing around with ChatGPT and she made this thing and I thought it was really cool. Like, could I make a version of that for our family? Like a chore tracker or something. And you might say, yeah,
let's do it together. Yeah.
let's do it together. Like try it. And but then you could be at a point where you're like, I'm not going to let you use that for homework. Like, and so I feel like there's going to be this, I think it's going to be very hard to just villainize all of it and just say it
Yeah.
because it's just not true. Like, I
Yeah.
actually think AI is going to greatly improve many areas of the world in the ways
Yeah.
of what it can do. And the goal just is that the good will outweigh the bad and we can
Yeah.
just curb the bad. But I think, I think it's gonna take time and experimentation. And so moms are gonna have to trust their gut like more
Yeah.
than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, that's so good.
Before we run out of time, I do want to hear you talk about one or as many as you want of the resources that you've created already for moms. If there's a mom who wants to get started, where they should start with your resources.
Yes. So it's Moms Build AI on Instagram, and I launch free resources almost daily. And so I have a resource which is like, I never used AI. I give a guide for your first 30 minutes, and literally you can copy paste questions. Like it gives you step by step to like make it as easy as possible. It gives you the link on what website to open to get started. Like, but then I have, additional things about like step by step guides for doing something a little bit more sophisticated. And then I constantly, put out resources. Like one of the resources that I think is really important is how to check your privacy settings and like make that
Yes.
and that's really important because
That's
the truth
good.
is like you just have to question it. You have to be like, okay, like every app has privacy settings. And I can give you an example, like Whisper that I use for auto dictation. I went to my settings and said do not keep my
Oh,
dictations. But
yeah.
and so it's a lot of like reminding, but I also share a lot of like experts because no one person is able to be the sole knowledge. So I also share just a lot of trusted voices, and a lot of my resources are just like how it can help with your mental load or with your work, but it's also just about like sometimes decisioning, or because it's such a holistic conversation. The area that I am trying to do more and more is how to talk to your kids about it and how to manage it with your kids or just what the data says. And that's been my slowest portion because I want to do it as carefully, thoughtfully, with as much
Mm.
expert data and help I can do it, because I don't want Moms Build AI. I don't want you to ever question what I'm
Yeah.
sharing, and I just
Yeah.
really want to make sure that it's like appropriately backed. I even have a post on like how to make your tech stack for and so and I'm very open to feedback, and so I always whenever a mom asks for a resource, I'll pretty much build it, and they're all free, and it's to just get you going. And as more asks come, I hope to make it like a very complete library. But like Hannah is a perfect example. I get extremely thoughtful questions, and I love that. It feels like a very safe space to like navigate
Yeah.
it
Ask
together.
questions.
And that was part of like what I wanted to do, was like make sure moms had this community of like, let's learn together, let's share together. Because I really think moms got to support moms on this one.
Yep.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
So good.
Wow, and thank you so much for so many free resources. Like I think this will be so good, especially for the audience that are there's going to be some people like me that are like, "Ugh, I don't, I'm hesitant. Like, let me dive into it in a way
Yeah.
that feels less risky, right?
Yeah.
Let me
Yes.
learn about it. And then there's going to be like Anna and Holly that are like, woohoo, like these are amazing. Let me put these to use. I was really interested. I think you just posted about it last night about like creating a website or something. There's like a new design. I know. I'm like,
Yes.
we're gonna have to talk about it because I was
Oh my
just like,
gosh,
I need
guys,
a
that's so
website. Yeah.
Claude launched Claude Design, and it's it's my favorite launch. Like you could design anything, but it's like it's actually incredible. And one of the things that I was thinking about it was everyone's been questioning what does this mean for website designers, etc. And I'm like,
Sure.
actually, like it could promote creativity even more because you
Yeah,
have to
maybe.
think out of the box of what's
Yeah.
possible. But I think it's amazing. Like you could create mood boards on there. You could create your children's like birthday party invites. You could.
Mm.
I honestly think if anyone's a bride, Claude Design is gonna be your
Oh my
best
gosh. Well, yeah, our
friend.
next door neighbor just made her Mary Poppins. Her daughter's turning 3 in a couple of weeks, and she like
Wow.
she had I don't know what, but she had something make this like Mary Poppins
Yeah.
invitation. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. Like all the ideas for like Mary Poppins themed birthday party. And it's so cute.
Yeah.
That's
Like
amazing.
it's a really good starting point. And, it is like, look, it's lowering the barrier. Like, I don't think I could have launched all these free resources, ship them so quickly, make them so like intuitive to work through if I needed code and I'm not a coder. And so the fact that AI can remove that. And I do want to share like two stories of hope is, I met a mom who's actually working on if she could make an AI app that would help her understand more patterns with, children who have autism and, with her personal
Mm.
experience. And I thought that was tremendous. And then, there's another mom who's trying to see if she can help with like grief management because that's a long journey. And I do, and like, there's amazing research around AI and cancer detection. And so there's going to be a lot of like very beautiful things. And so I always just, try to have a very balanced approach of like, okay, yes, there could be this darkness, but there's also a lot of brightness. And, we just have to really hope that we can be part of shaping it.
Absolutely. My daughter has heart disease, and AI has helped me understand so much of what I could have never understood that the doctors talk about and about
Yeah.
her anatomy and all. And luckily my husband's in biology, so he
Okay.
fully understands, but sometimes it's helpful for me to process and learn in a different way. Like I need it at toddler level, and
Yeah. You
like
need to digest it. And yeah.
exactly. And just kind of process actually what's happening. And that is something that I could have never done and understood so well without AI. And then it makes me a better
100%.
advocate, and it helps me to explain it to her in a way she can understand. And I mean, endless benefits of how that's helped me. So
No, that's amazing. That's an amazing story. And I also really want insurance companies to use it so I can understand policies because I don't know.
yes, that's so true.
I'm like, can you get better documentation now with AI so I can actually understand what?
Yes.
How do I file this claim so it will actually
Yeah.
get paid?
Yes, and why did
Exactly.
it protect? Like it's almost. I think that's such a huge opportunity with this simplification, and so
Yes.
I think that's a great thing. You
Yeah.
guys have been so wonderful. Thank
Thank
you
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 are
so much for
amazing.
coming on.
We are so grateful. We would definitely love to have you back on.
Anytime.
We would love, especially like Hannah said, when Holly can come, she will have a million questions. She's going to want to pick your brain about everything. So we definitely need to have you
Love
come
it.
back on and have another conversation when she can join us. But yeah, thank you so much. And we'll be sure to put
Thank you.
your resources and
Thank you so
the link
much.
to your Instagram and everything in the show notes. So for listeners or watchers, if you want to check out the show notes, we will have links to everything that Shreya mentioned. You can message her, you can send her requests for
Yes.
new resources. And as a reminder, if you are not following Get Mom Ready already, you can follow us at getmomready.com, where we will send you weekly emails with our podcast episodes and all of the resources that are mentioned throughout the episodes. You can also go to getmomready.com and book a coaching call. So again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Love chatting
you.
with you. And I can't wait to start following and
Thank
you're putting
you.
out and learn more.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.